Hi Fiverr, I hope you're okay. So today, in today's video, we are going to be doing the last chapter of The Boy at the Back of the Class. How exciting! So you'll finally get to know how the book ends. Okay, let's get started. So this is chapter 26 and it's called The Present. It's been 2 weeks since we were all in the newspapers and received the Queen's letter, and in a lot of ways, things feel just like they did before. Mum doesn't want me to the bus stop anymore, and strangers have stopped staring at us with funny looks on their faces, and I'm still hoping to win first prize for my photosynthesis plant, even though Amit's plant is growing faster than everyone else's can. He's teaching me some words in Kurdish like grow more and grow up and I love you lots, and I think it's working. But in a lot of other ways, things aren't normal at all. Aunt Christina comes round much more often and she buys me presents too. I think she likes us now because we were in the newspapers. I still don't like her. Whenever she comes, I ignore her and make Uncle Lenny play Scrabble with me and Mum like he used to do. Mr. and Mrs. Rashid from the floor below have invited Mum and me for dinner this weekend, which means Mum might have a new best friend. And next week, I'll be going with Tom and Josie and Michael and Amit to Buckingham Palace to have tea with the Queen. Sometimes I get so excited thinking about it that I have to jump up and down just as high as I can until my insides feel calmer. I think they must know that things can never be the same again after you have tea with the actual Queen. Mum asked me what I'd like to take as a present for the Queen, and I thought about it for 3 hours. In the end, I decided that as she didn't really need anything, and I can't afford to buy her real diamonds or a ruby, I would just buy her a pomegranate. From the man with a royal heart, because I think the next best thing to wearing lots of jewellery must be eating lots of little ones instead. The other thing that's changing is that I turned 10 today. When I woke up extra early this morning, I found the birthday card on the kitchen table. The birthday card is a very old card. It was the last one Dad gave to me before he died. And every year, Mum puts it out so that he can be there to greet me when I wake up, just like he used to when he was alive. It doesn't say much inside. Just, to my pumpkin, happy birthday, try not to grow up too fast, love, Dad. I'm glad Mum had to leave for work early because seeing the card always makes me want to sit down and cry. So I did. And then I went to my room and played one of Dad's favourite songs on his old record player. That made me feel better too. Sometimes all you really need is somewhere to cry without anyone ever knowing. I didn't remind anyone it was my birthday because I wasn't having a party. And I didn't have anything to take into class with me. Josie brings in a big cake on her birthday, and Michael's mum always hands out goodie bags to everyone. But Mum doesn't have time to bake, and goodie bags are expensive. That's why it's easier to pretend I don't have a birthday at all. I met Tom and Josie and Michael by the bus stop as usual, and when they didn't say anything about my birthday, I felt sad and glad at the same time. I was afraid Mrs. Khan might say something, but she didn't. My Uncle Lenny usually sends me something in the post, so I would probably get home to find a card with some extra pocket money or chocolate in it, like I did last year. If I did, that would be nice. At afternoon break, Josie and Tom and Michael and Amit and me talked about what we were going to wear to Buckingham Palace next week. Josie's mum was going to buy her a new dress and a new pair of football trainers. Michael was wearing a suit with a bow tie. Tom said he had a purple suit his uncle had made him wear to a wedding in San Francisco, but which might not fit him anymore. And Amit said his foster mum was going to buy him something at the weekend, and that he would also take his rucksack. "You can't take a rucksack with you," said Josie. It's old and ripped and it's got a hole in the front pocket. The Queen might not even let it inside the palace." "But important," said Ahmet, looking panicked. "My dad gave me for birthday before war, and I carry from Syria. So next time I tell him it is seen by Queen." "Oh," said Josie, looking sorry that she had just said anything. "Then you have to take it," I said. "The Queen will want to see it." "Yeah," said Tom, "and your dad will love it." Ahmet smiled and said, "I know you two understand." The bell for last period began to ring, but as we all headed back to class, we met Miss Hemsey in the corridor outside. She was clasping her hands together and her eyes looked red. As soon as she saw us, she ran over and, whispering something into Ahmet's ear, took him by the hand and quickly led him away. "Where's she taking him?" asked Josie, as Ahmet looked over his shoulder with a confused look on his face. None of us could think of an answer, so we made our way back to class. After we had all got out our spelling books and had spent 10 minutes learning the meaning and spelling of 3 new words, possession, depression and objection, there was a light knock at the door. We all looked around to see who it was. After a few seconds, Mrs. Hemsey's head popped round the door, and after giving Mrs. Khan a thumbs up, disappeared again. Mrs. Khan smiled and, clapping her hands, said, "Right, everyone, close your books, please. I have a very important announcement to make." We all felt quiet and waited for an explanation about what was going on and where Ahmet was. "Today is a very special day," said Mrs. Khan, and we have a very few special guests to come and help us celebrate." Everyone turned around to see if there was anyone at the door, but there was no one there yet. "Eyes to the front, please," ordered Mrs. Khan. "Now, before our guests arrive, I want you to all promise me that you'll be on your very best behaviour." Everyone shouted, "We promise, Mrs. Khan," wondering who the guests could be. "Do you think it's the Queen?" whispered Josie. "Maybe it's the Queen's guards again," whispered Tom. But they were both wrong, because it was my mum, carrying a cake with candles on it, and behind her was Mrs. Sanders and Ahmet's foster mum and Miss Hemsey and the woman who had been at the interview and who Michael had said was Ahmet's caseworker, and another woman we had seen before who was walking with her hand on Ahmet's shoulder. I could tell Ahmet was happy because he was smiling, but his eyes looked wet and a little red too, just like Miss Hemsey's had in the corridor. And within a few seconds the whole class was singing happy birthday to me just as loudly as they could. After Mum helped me blow out the candles, Ahmet and Miss Hemsey and the woman who still had her hand on his shoulder stood at the front of the class with Mrs. Khan. "Quiet down, please, everyone," called out Mrs. Khan. "We'll cut the cake in just a few minutes. But first, I want everyone to say good afternoon to our extra special guest, Miss Duncan." The woman standing beside Ahmet stepped forward as everyone shouted out, "Good afternoon, Miss Duncan." She was wearing a bright blue suit and had short grey hair and a green diamond ring. "Now, Miss Duncan has come here today from very far away because she has some important news to share with us all," said Mrs. Khan. "Over to you, Miss Duncan." Miss Duncan nodded and looked straight at me with a smile before looking around at everyone. "Good morning, everyone. I'm from the Home Office, which is a government department that controls who comes in and out of our country." "Like the police?" called out Dean. "No, not like the police," smiled Mrs. Duncan. She waited for more questions, but no one else said anything. Everyone was deathly silent now, and I could feel my whole chest beating so hard that it felt like someone was playing drums inside my tummy. Mrs. Duncan carried on. "Today I had the pleasure of bringing Ahmet some special news, and he has very kindly said that he would like to share it with all of you. Ahmet?" She held out a plain white envelope that had no address on it and offered it to him, but Ahmet didn't take it and whispered something to Miss Hemsey instead. Miss Hemsey frowned at first, but then laughing and crying all at once, gestured for me to come up. He would like his best friend to read it to everyone, she explained. For a moment I couldn't move. Then Josie gave me a kick under the table that made me stand up and slowly walk over to where Ahmet was standing. Miss Duncan waited until I was standing in front of her and, holding out the envelope to me, said, "A very happy birthday, Alexa, from all of us. Thanks to you, and to Josie, and Michael, and Tom, of course, there have been thousands of people writing in and signing petitions and calling our offices just to ask how they could help Ahmet and lots of other refugee children like him. And because of that, well, here you go." Ahmet nodded and added, "Happy birthday, best friend." I opened my mouth, but I think all my words must have disappeared and my brain had stopped working, because I couldn't really think any thoughts anymore. Ahmet tapped the envelope into my hand and said, "You read it, for me." I tried to take the piece of paper out of the envelope, but there were so many eyes staring at me, and Ahmet's eyes looked so big that my fingers got nervous and started to shake. "Here, darling, let me help you," whispered my mum, as she jumped up and quickly took out the folded piece of paper that lay inside. Opening it up, she held me close, and we read it out loud together. It said, "Status: Family Investigation Summary. Ahmet Sakul, age 9. Father, Mohammed Sakul, age 43. Profession, engineer. Country of origin, Syria. Status: located in Calais refugee camp, France. Mother, Samira Sakul, age 45. Profession, journalist. Country of origin, Syria. Status: located in a medical facility in Turkey. Sister, Sira Sakul, age 3. Status: deceased at the crossing. HO outcome: granted permanent asylum in the UK, reunification of family imminent. I looked up at Mum and then at Ahmet and then back at Mum again. What does asylum mean? My mum smiled, but her eyes were watery too. It means they can come and live here, darling. Ahmet's mum and dad are coming to the UK. They've been found. I looked up at Ahmet, who was nodding excitedly, and I looked up at Tom and Josie and Michael, who were all staring at me with their mouths open. And I looked at Mrs. Khan, who was saying a prayer, and Miss Hemsey, who was crying so much that she had grabbed Mrs. Sanders and was making her go red in the face. And suddenly Michael jumped up and shouted, "We did it!" And the whole class started cheering and whooping and jumping and clapping all at once. I know that afternoon was one of the best afternoons I will ever have. Not because it was my birthday, but because it was an end to one of the best adventures a brand new 10-year-old could ever have. And the beginning of a whole set of new adventures that I bet even Tintin never had. And it was all thanks to a boy who came and sat at the back of the class and who let me be his friend. The end. What a lovely book, Five and Mar. I have really enjoyed reading this with all of you. Had some very excited faces at the 1 o'clock read today when they found out it was a happy ending. I really hope you enjoyed it. And our next book is The Day We Met the Queen, which is a follow-up book from this one. Same author, same illustrator, and we'll be carrying that on in the next video. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye, Five and Mar.